Now, anytime I've ever done a video concerning one of the Star Wars animated shows in the past, especially those where I talked about Resistance for some strange reason, I always had people bringing up how great Avatar: The Last Airbender was, as well as asking me if I'd ever seen it. And until very recently, the answer to that question had been no. However, thanks in large part to the recommendations of a lot of you out there, I have started to watch it, and I'm currently a few episodes into Season 2, so please no spoilers in the comments. Anyway, to give the briefest of reviews ever before I get on with this theory, which will of course have to do with Avatar, it's been an absolutely fantastic show, and I'm loving these characters and the story. Truly the best first season of an animated show I've ever seen. Not that I've seen a great many of them, mind you. Well, at least not since I was a kid. I even considered doing a video where I compared Season 1 of Resistance to Season 1 of Avatar, but then I realized that'd be a bit lopsided. Kind of like pitting an untrained Force user who'd never held a lightsaber before against one with years of training and experience in a duel. Oh, wait, that's actually a really bad example. All joking aside, again, the show's been great, and my favorite character has been Zuko, because I love a well-crafted, sympathetic villain. And I oftentimes find myself wishing Kylo Ren's character could have been a bit more like Zuko, and that his story could have been similar, which it easily could have been considering they're both haunted by the legacy of their family. And Snoke could have been like the Fire Lord, and so on, but all that is for another video perhaps. Anyway, one of the things I've found most interesting thus far is that the Avatar can enter something called the Avatar state, which for those of you who haven't seen the show, and remember for those of you who have, I'm only in Season 2, so I don't know everything. Anyway, the Avatar can enter this state where he connects with all his past incarnations or past lives, and he can then focus all their knowledge and power and become nearly unstoppable. However, if he's killed in this form, all the spirits of the past lives will also be destroyed. And before I go on, let me quickly acknowledge that almost without a doubt, others out there have suggested something very similar to what I'm about to suggest. Hell, some of you in the comments of my other videos have probably suggested this very thing, and I didn't realize what you're talking about because I hadn't seen the show yet. In other words here, I'm not trying to claim I'll be the first one to present this idea, however, I'd like to discuss what could be done with it. And that general idea, of course, is that Rey is something like the Avatar, and that she has the ability to either become possessed by the Force itself, or maybe to be possessed by the Force ghosts, or maybe just to be possessed by Anakin, who was the chosen one, which means she too is something very similar to that, even though I know some of you out there will hate the idea of another chosen one, or that Anakin didn't fulfill the prophecy, or whatever else the case might be. And speaking of that, I know every time I present a theory to explain Rey's power or to quote-unquote fix the character, some of you out there get mad at me and tell me not to try and correct their mistakes or to fill their plot holes for them. And I do get where you're coming from with that, but that's not really what my intent is per se. Mostly I'm just trying to present a fun idea or possibility. And as I've said before, theory videos are really just what-if videos by a different name. In other words, this video could easily be called What If Rey Was Something Like the Avatar? Because, let's be honest, there's almost no chance my quote-unquote theory is on the right track. Though, who knows for sure, because as I see it, probably the greatest challenge Episode 9 faces is finding a way to give us a new, satisfying, and definitive end to the Skywalker saga, as they've promised us it will be. Which means it'll have to then overcome the corner Episode 8 pretty much backed the story into, by killing off characters like Snoke and Luke, characters that could have thrown a curveball into things, and by also leaving us with only two generic plot points left to conclude, those being, what will happen to Kylo Ren? Will he be killed, redeemed, or something else? And will the First Order be stopped? Because, as it stands right now, those really are the only two main story points left to resolve, unless others are manufactured in Episode 9 itself, which is not only a possibility, but is quite likely, especially when you consider those two plot points we currently have are almost identical to the ones Return of the Jedi dealt with, where it had to resolve the fate of Darth Vader instead of Kylo Ren now, and whether or not the Empire will be defeated instead of the First Order. But at least Return of the Jedi also had the Emperor in the mix to give the final confrontation between Luke and Vader a whole other dynamic. Basically what I'm saying here is all The Last Jedi did was set up a finale, or an Episode 9 I should say, that would be extremely similar to Return of the Jedi, and now something needs to be done within the final movie to change that. Something needs to be done to make it feel unique and different from an ending we once got before. One that, honestly, was damn near perfect, and now requires something greater than it on some level in order to justify it being undone. I mean, why continue a story just to give it a worse or less meaningful ending? Well, other than to make some money, of course. And as I see it, the absolute biggest key to success for Episode 9 is doing something different and unique and interesting with Rey to shake up her character from what people, some unenthusiastically, expect from her in this last movie. And as I suggested in my video yesterday, I think the best and maybe only way to do that is to make her not necessarily the villain of the movie, but that she becomes a threat that needs to be dealt with. And yeah, I know many of you will say Disney will never allow that to happen to their new Star Wars princess, that it doesn't fit the agenda. But at this point, I'd imagine Disney will be open to anything that might heal some of the damage caused to the franchise by Episode 8. Above all else, they not only want Episode 9 to be a successful movie and make them a ton of money, they want the franchise to continue to be viable long term. Anyway, this is where we go back to the idea that she is something like the Avatar, that she can channel the Force in a way that no one ever has before, and thanks to not being trained, she is slowly but surely losing control of all of that power and becoming dangerous to herself and others. And as Kylo grows exponentially in the dark side, maybe filling in some sort of void left by Snoke perhaps, Rey too grows in strength with the light side, since she is supposed to be his counterbalance. And though it'd be hard to pull off at this point, and you might get some eye rolls or upset fans, but one thing you could do is make Rey the daughter of Luke still, and then make Ben and Rey both sort of reincarnations of Anakin, where one is strong with the light, and one is strong with the dark. One basically represents Vader, the other Anakin. And honestly, with the way Kylo seemed to be influenced by the helmet of Vader in Episode 7, and Rey was being directed by the saber to Luke, I kind of thought something like that might have been J.J. Abrams' plan all along. And what better way to wrap up the Skywalker saga than by, in a sense, pitting Anakin and Vader against each other, with, in some capacity, the Force ghost of Anakin fighting alongside or within Rey against Kylo and some remnant of Darth Vader. And do keep in mind that in the Aftermath book series, it seemed to be setting up this very possibility, that dark-side users could leave some type of lasting stain upon the Force. Something like this was even seen in Season 6 of the Clone Wars, when Yoda encounters a remnant of Darth Bane. And yeah, I'll acknowledge that such a battle has the potential to go all sorts of wrong, but it also has the potential to be beautiful. Either way, I think making Rey a threat in Episode 9 by being unable to control her power would be a great twist for the story. It might be a little meta perhaps, but I think some of the people who don't currently like her because she is so powerful might warm up to her a bit if the filmmakers kind of acknowledge that and make it her weakness, if they make it where she's the one who needs to be stopped. And much like in Avatar: The Last Airbender, her power only truly comes out when she's in danger, which means she'll have left the Resistance and isolated herself, which has destroyed the morale of the Resistance in their battle against the First Order, and so Leia has sent Finn and Poe looking for her, though no one truly understands why she's left exactly. And then we'll have Kylo Ren looking for her as well, wanting to attack her so that she'll be forced to fully embrace her power, so that he can fully embrace his. And thanks to the lingering bond between them, he's able to track her and still communicate with her, which is how we'll see that, despite the cold ending between them in Episode 8, they are actually growing closer to each other. As for how it ultimately ends, maybe one sacrifices themselves for the other. Maybe in order to stop Kylo Ren from growing too powerful, Rey will give her life, or maybe Kylo will give his, in order to once again make the Force go dormant in Rey. Now, is this a great ending? Maybe, maybe not. There are certainly other ways it could play out, or other elements that could be added to make it more interesting, like the Force ghosts of Anakin and Luke, maybe convincing Kylo to, as crazy as it sounds, destroy Rey, even though he truly is growing closer to her, and doing so will also mean him losing all of his power. Or maybe it ends up with Rey begging Kylo Ren to kill her because she is losing control forever, and at the last second, he takes his own life instead and saves her. Which, sure, is a bit cheesy and cliche, but again, with only these two characters to work with currently, more than likely, we are going to get some sort of cliche ending that's almost going to be unavoidable at this point, which is why getting us to that ending needs to be unique and unexpected. That's why something needs to be done with Rey so that those fans who have yet to be able to connect with her can do so, and to reinforce the bond those who do like her already have with her. And if Episode 9 ends up being a great movie, it'll be because we all fell in love with Rey and care about her fate. And I know some of you will never like the character or don't think that's even possible at this point. And that's fair, and I get it. If after 2 movies you feel nothing for a character, it's hard to imagine a third and final one will change that, especially when the powers that be at Disney and Lucasfilm don't seem to understand the issues some of us fans have with her in the first place. But as I keep saying, I do want Episode 9 to be a great movie. I want the new ending of the saga to be at least good, even if it can never be as great as the one we used to have. Because like it or not, that ending's now been undone, at least canonically. And my hope is that somehow, some way, they can begin to justify doing that, and then move on to something new and better. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you think should be done with Rey in Episode 9 in order to make those who haven't liked or cared about her yet begin to possibly change their minds. So leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.